Hey, Ray. Yeah, we're here.
Hey guys, there you
All
go.
right.
There we go. Hey guys.
We got a crew on here. Let's see who's on here. It looks like we got Eduardo, we got Damon, we got Ivan, we got Bevan. Jason? Where's Jason? Looks like we got Corey. Corey, happy birthday, man. Guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started on this. First off, big week, guys. I don't know if you guys know this, but the blue collar millionaire, his dad just recently passed away. So keep that in mind with our good friend that's going through a lot. Member of community just lost his father. So um, it's hard going through losses in life, and reach out to people inside the group. You never know what they're going through. Happy birthday, Corey. Hopefully you had an awesome day. Bevan in the house. Eduardo's in the cop car. It looks like he's just patrolling the bad guys out there in Logan, Utah. Damon and Ray, what's going on? Looks like Ray, you're traveling a bunch. I'm going to lead this up. I know the last couple of weeks we've talked a little bit more about creating wealth and creating leverage and talking about money. And so, I was thinking, you know what? Who can we invite on here that could help you guys personally create more leverage in your life? Who can we invite that will show you guys how not only how to build your credit, but also how to build business credit, which you guys can turn around and use that money. So the number one skill that you guys could possibly have is your ability to raise capital. If you guys are really good at knowing how to raise capital, you guys can pretty much do anything that you want. Because if you're able to raise capital, it happens for two reasons. Number one, because people trust you. They trust you. If you're struggling to get money from people, it's because they don't trust you. Like this week alone, I've raised over $1 million in capital for a couple of deals that I'm working on. And I've raised capital in a variety of different ways. And then the second way to raise capital is because you have a really, really good deal. Those are the two main reasons. People trust you, friends, family, people you see online, or people that actually see that you have a really, really good opportunity and they're willing to give you the money in return for that deal. Now, there's much, much more efficient ways to raise capital that are much less inexpensive than others. I'll give you this tip here. If you're in a hurry, you're going to have to pay a lot more for your money. Those that are in a hurry, they lose out because they need that money immediately. I see it happening all the time. If you actually have time and you can plan this out, you can get money for much cheaper. And so there's so many different strategies that are out there. So I want to open up my world when it comes to real estate and raising capital and money. Like literally this week alone, I've raised $1 million, over $1 million from people, and not just one or two people, a variety of people to do some real estate deals and some real estate transactions. And so it's critical that you build some incredible relationships. And about a month ago, this individual was going to help me refi into a lower deal. I was paying like 12% interest, working on helping me pay around 6.9, 6.7. And as I was on the phone with him, he was giving me all these tips about like, hey, where are your credit cards at? When do you make your payments? And I was like, okay, that doesn't affect you because that's business credit. So you could have a bunch of debt on your business credit, but it doesn't affect your debt to equity ratio. Hey, are your payments set up on auto pay? And I'm sitting there thinking, no, no. Okay, I'm working on it. And he's like, yeah, you do those little steps right there. It'll build your credit 20, 30, 40% points, and you guys can actually use that to get better rates, better terms. Hey, do you have a credit card that's 5,000? It's at 4,000. Pay that one off first. Pay that one 50% down. The other ones, don't worry about it. Like there's so many little tips when it comes to it. Literally was fascinating to me. I remember Ivan, as we were going through it, I was and you think, man, you should know this stuff, and I kind of heard of different things, but the little tiny things that you were telling me were absolutely fascinating. So I just thought I would share that with you guys not only as you guys are doing not only real estate deals, but as you guys are raising private money for businesses, if you're raising money for whatever your kids' college fund, there's so many strategies of using trust and being tax free. And holy cow, Ivan was an absolute wizard. And so this morning, when I'm sitting there talking to Jason and Ray, and I'm like, okay, guys, we got to get this Ivan guy on because these are concepts that you guys will use and learn the rest of your life. So without further ado, I want to introduce somebody that can help you guys raise capital, help you build your credit. He's just a good dude. He's one of us. He's a brother. He's a Christian. He genuinely cares. I've gotten to know him through different events and different things. He's connected with a lot of the same people. Maybe you want to refi, maybe you want to get a loan. Awesome. Ivan is just a salt of the earth individual. So without further ado, I want to introduce the man himself, Mr. Ivan Oberon. Take it away, my man.
Thanks, man. That's really humbling, and I appreciate being part of this group. I remember meeting Ray at your world's largest bus tour, and I'm not sure if I should start this with push-ups or what are we going to do here because I'm pretty jacked. I actually just came off of a 3-day mastermind event, which you guys would all also benefit from. Just these gentlemen are just creating something that's never been done before in the world. But we're not going to talk about that this evening. Um, well, I don't even know where to start here, other than the fact that my brand, since you gave me the opening, right? My brand, my personal brand, the Lord gave me over the years as I've built my business, and I've kept telling him, Lord, like the reason that I want you to expand my territory so I can have greater influence, so I can plant seeds, so I can go and give you glory, so I can get out there and have my business glorify you. And as we kept doing this, he told me at the beginning of the year, all right, well, keep putting your money where your mouth is. So I want you to rebrand yourself, like your entire personal brand. So I came up with this whole concept of your kingdom lender, because primarily what I started doing about 14 years ago, I was trying to get out of an insurance career, and somehow real estate investing fell into my lap. And there wasn't Facebook groups, there wasn't HGTV, there wasn't any of that kind of stuff back then. And quite frankly, I didn't know the first thing about real estate. All I knew is that eventually I wanted to own some, because I had heard that more wealth had been created in and through real estate than any other asset class out there. And even when I was 17 years old, somehow I had this idea of eventually I want to own real estate. I don't know what the heck that looks like, but tying it into the credit piece, even though I never wanted to become a credit expert, I never, I don't teach it. That, like, that's not my business, right? But I have to learn it for myself, because if you're going to be a successful investor, if you're going to own real estate, if you're going to create wealth, you have to learn to play the game. And that's what credit is. Credit is a game. And it sucks and it's stupid and whatever, but that's what the world runs on. And just like every game out there, what does every game have? It has two things. Usually has a board that you play, right? And the real estate, if we're playing real estate, we're talking about real estate, which is what most of us want to do. They say that there's only two kinds of people, right? There's the people that want to invest in real estate, and there's people that are investing in real estate. So the board is the market, and the game is real estate. Same thing as credit. Credit is a game. And you have to just learn how to play by the rules, even though it's rigged and it's stupid and whatever. But when you learn the game, you can actually get the creditors to pay you to use their credit instead of you paying them to use their credit. And we're going to talk a little bit about loans, but we're going to focus more on personal credit, because that's where it all starts. Personal credit is where it all starts. You can't get business credit without personal credit. You can't get private money loans, hard money loans, mortgages without personal credit. Once you understand that, then you can start leveraging into other things. And so somehow, quite frankly, just by the grace of God, somehow when I was 17 years old, I realized there's a thing called credit, because my parents, God bless them, I love them. I had amazing parents. My parents were together until the day that my dad passed away. So I have no complaints there, but they didn't teach me any of these things. Somehow I had to go out there and seek them myself. Like, I'm first generation learning all this stuff, other than the fact that my dad was an entrepreneur, and in antiquities and ancient things and crazy things that nobody understands these days, or even necessarily appreciates. But I decided that I was going to take $300 when I was 17 years old, which was like a whole bunch of money to me back in those days, because I'm almost 50, so that was a long time ago. And I went to Washington Mutual, who doesn't even exist anymore, and I gave him $300 of my own money. And for the privilege, I got to borrow against my own money and pay interest on my own money to borrow that money against Washington Mutual. And after I had that perfect payment history for 18 months, they gave me my $300 back, and then they gave me an unsecured visa for 500 bucks. And then I just kind of grew it from there. So that's kind of like how I started. And I haven't thought about that story, Scott, for ever, like since probably I was 20 years old. So I mean, almost 30 years since I've thought about that. But since you called me and you asked me to do this, like that's actually kind of like how I started. And the cool thing is that I was actually able to write my own ticket after that because I had established a good credit score. And then I can now start being able to finance vehicles. I bought my first condo, then I bought my first house. I started doing all these things because I was responsible. And when you learn what the FICO algorithm does and what the score even means, right? What does anybody know why there's a score? Like what the score means? You go anywhere from like 300 all the way up to like about 850. And all that means is that if you have a 700 credit score right now, it tells creditors, it tells investors, it tells anybody that would check it that you have about a 70% chance at actually repaying the loan they gave you.
Hmm.
And some investors will actually ask for your credit score. You want to rent an apartment, they're going to check your credit score. You want to get a credit card, you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, they're going to check your credit score. And the higher the credit score you have, and even 850 is the max, so that means that nothing's guaranteed, right? You only have like the max best you could get is about an 85% chance to show these investors that they have only a 50% chance or risk that you will not pay them back. And most of them will jump at the opportunity to give you that money if they only have a 15% chance that they're going to lose, right? So that's kind of how it starts. And so what are the benefits of actually paying attention to your credit score? Well, if all of you, since you're tied into this network, I'm sure you want to invest in real estate, right? Because you understand the residual income, the deductions, the tax advantages, the wealth creation, all the different things that Red Suit teaches about real estate and why you should get into it. Well, you're going to want that. Lines of credit are also important. There's so many times that maybe you can't get an actual loan based off of an asset, but maybe you can get an unsecured personal line of credit, or maybe you can get lines of credit to accomplish certain things that you want to do. Well, credit's important for that. Some investors, if you're raising capital, will ask you, they'll either ask you for your credit score or they might ask you the question, well, like, how do you do in paying bills? Because if you look at the mortgage industry and hard money lending, they have a lot of forgiveness for late payments on your cars, late payments on your credit cards, sometimes even like long time past bankruptcies or even foreclosures. But you have 1 30-day late on a mortgage, it's gonna be really tough because that's all they care about, right? Because what's the last thing a person will let go? The last thing a person will let go is their mortgage on their personal residence. They'll let their cars get repoed. They won't pay their creditors. They won't do anything, but because everybody needs a place to live. So if you're at a point where you can't even keep up with your mortgage, it's probably gonna be super risky. Even if your credit score is still kind of like maintaining, 70% chance, 75% chance, but you have a 1 30-day late or a 2 30-day late, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for you to get any kind of investor to take a bet on you. And not only that, what's the other reason that's important to have a decent credit score? Your wealth increases much more rapidly. Why is that? Because the way that terms are set by all these mortgage lenders, hard money lenders, private money lenders, and I do it all, right? I have a conventional mortgage shop. I do a whole bunch of private money and hard money because that's where I got my start, raising capital. I was raising capital to flip homes, and I kind of like fell into private money lending because at some point after I started flipping homes in California, then Indianapolis, Kansas City, Dallas, and my investors were succeeding. Eventually, I found myself at a place where I had way more money than I had my own personal deals that I could deploy the money into. And you know what money wants to do? Money wants to move. You have to move it. And no matter how much it likes you, if you don't move it, it's going to find somebody else to move it for you. So I started like growing my network, and now I had other people flipping homes. Guess what they need? Money. So I was like, oh, well, I have some money. I have an investor over here. And then I have a real estate investor over here that needs the money. And so I started connecting money with deals. And like many of you, I'm sure you're all entrepreneurs. Like, I don't know if you were born entrepreneurs, like I wasn't, but it's like I had to build into it. I was just taking one step in front of the other. It's like I don't even know what I'm doing right now. But money wants a deal, and I started calling it a relationship fee. Like that's how naive I was. But I fell into private money brokering. That's how I fell into it. I was just like, oh, I'll put this money with this. And so it gives you the opportunity to grow your wealth because the better your credit score, the better the terms. And if you have better terms, the cost of money is going to be cheaper for you. And that's part of how they set the terms. How do they set the terms? It's a risk profile. The riskier the loan, the riskier the profile of the borrower, the riskier the profile of the deal, the higher the interest rate. So if you can present yourself in a way that you present yourself as lower risk, you're going to get better interest rates, better cost of money, and maybe even be able to get the money in the first place. Because if your credit's at a certain level, you won't even get the money. So that means that you can increase your wealth much more quickly because your cost of money is going to be less expensive. Does all that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and to that point, so a few takeaways. There's certain things you guys want to know that you don't want to miss a payment. Mortgage is you have to make that payment, right? The other thing, so if you miss a car payment, your credit's not going to go down as much as you miss a mortgage payment in a nutshell. So like understanding those things is very important, not only for yourself, but so you guys can educate the market for other people that you're helping out. It's not always just about you. A lot of times we're always thinking about us, but imagine taking that knowledge to somebody else and teaching them that. Now all of a sudden they're like, hey, I want to give you money to invest with.
Hmm.
And then the second thing is that what'd you call it? Relationship fee.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I used to call it.
think
Hmm.
about it, guys. You guys can actually do, and people do this and they make an absolute fortune. You put 100 grand in the bank, they give you 3 or 4%. You put it into a real estate deal, you could probably lend it out and get 7, 8, 10%. So a lot of times, like what Ivan does and some of these other guys, it's like an arbitrage. They'll get somebody that has a 100,000 and they say, give it to me, I'll give you a 6% return, right? And then Ivan goes and charges somebody 9%. So Ivan will make a spread of 3% or maybe 2%. So he's borrowing this guy's money. That guy's stoked out of his mind because in the bank he's making 1% or 2%. He makes 6. This guy's paying 9, he's not paying 12%. And Ivan makes a spread on it. So, like, when you really understand how the game works, what happens, you start fixing and flipping homes. Now, all of a sudden, you can become a hard money lender and you guys can not only let your money work for you, but you guys can have other people that will help give you money that you can make money off of that. Like that's how you
For
build
sure.
massive amounts of wealth. So
And, and I don't know. I know we have a very experienced room here, and there's not a whole lot of people, but I know the room is pretty experienced. So I don't want to talk below you guys or anything like that. But and I don't know if you guys are looking to borrow money or to lend money, but that's part of how the wealthy get really wealthy is when you understand small money movements in using certain types of accounts and the certain types of deals that you put it into, and you can become that mortgage lender. You can do that yourself, but that's a whole other thing, and not necessarily the topic of this conversation. But some of you and within the group are also real estate agents, and you deal with people that are buying homes and selling homes, and their credit scores matter, and sometimes they might not even be able to qualify. So understanding a few little things, and I think what really got Scott's juices cooking is when we were talking about his deal, and we were, of course, you had to be a fiduciary, right? People have to get transparent in front of you. They had to tell you about their assets and their credit scores and their past stuff, right? So as we're having these conversations, I just wanted to leave you guys with like a few little tips because all of us can need it, right? It's just a few little tips to garner a few extra credit score points that are going to help you. Even if you're already an awesome score, even if you have a 740, if you got to a 760, it would improve your life. And the top tiers are changing, right? It used to be that about a 740 was, and then a 760. Now it's a 780 plus is top tier credit. And that's where you're going to start getting the difference in pricing. And it's not just the interest rate, but it's also the cost of the loans that you guys are looking to get. So a few little things. My first recommendation is you got to focus on credit optimization before you focus on credit repair. Even if you have like your credit score like tanked because something happened, like trust me, man. Like I went through a divorce in 2009. It was the worst thing ever in my life, but partially because I had worked really hard since I told you, since the time I was 18 years old and I got that first credit card, I was building my credit. I had perfect payment history up until that time in 2009 that I started going through a divorce. And I had to call Wells Fargo 4 months into it. And I told them, look, this is a situation. I'm okay right now, but in about 4 months, I'm not going to be able to afford this mortgage payment on my own anymore. And so I need you to work with me right now. Well, of course they didn't. So my credit tanked and I didn't look at my credit for the next like 4 years because then I just started getting notices that my credit lines were cut. So I knew my credit started sucking. But the bank told me, I can't help you until because you're too responsible. Like that's part of the problem. You're too responsible. You've made all your payments. We can't help you yet until you've missed at least 3 payments. So, but I've rebuilt my credit from that point, and it really helped me focus on credit optimization versus credit repair. Because a lot of the companies out there will drain people that just want to increase their credit score by removing maybe a derogatory. They missed a payment, they had a 30-day late, maybe they had a foreclosure, something like that, and they put you on this subscription system to just milk you dry, and 3 years later your credit score is still not repaired because they're not focusing on optimization. So an optimized credit profile is the main thing that you want, because when your credit profile itself is optimized, when you get an inquiry for your next car payment or a mortgage or something else, that ding, that inquiry does not drop your credit score as much as if your credit profile is not optimized. So what are some of those things that help optimize your credit profile? One thing you want to do is call your credit reporting agencies, which are going to be Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and make sure that you don't have any aliases. Okay, if one bureau says Ray Cash Care, and another bureau says Ray Care, and another bureau says Ray Cash, you don't have an optimized credit profile. Okay, it has to be consistent across the board. Why is that? It's all about risk. Right? Why does one loan have an 8% interest rate and one loan have a 6% interest rate? Risk. If you have an 80% LTV versus a 75 or a 70% LTV, that 70% LTV is going to have better terms because the risk to the investor is lower with a lower loan to value. It's the same thing. If you have three different aliases and somehow you stop paying your bills, it's going to be more difficult for that creditor to find the real person to collect from. Okay, so you want to make them feel good about them being able to find you. Going on to the next thing, if you have one or two or three or four different addresses reporting on your credit profiles, because most of us have moved many times, so you don't know which address is reporting on your bureaus. That's the next quick little tip that you can do. If whatever your address is now, 123 Main Street, is your address, but it's not reported congruently across your bureaus, it's going to strip you from credit score points. Okay, it might be three, it might be four, but I'm telling you, a rate between a 720 and a 715, it's different. Okay, what you're going to get for pricing, it's going to cost you more money. So these little things that can get you into those next levels make sense. So make sure your name is the same everywhere. Make sure your address is the same everywhere. The next thing, which Scott said before, just put all of your credit cards, especially your credit cards, but you can do your other accounts too, but your credit cards make the most difference. Put all of your credit cards on auto pay. You will automatically garner extra credit score points. Why? Because it's the perception of reduced risk. When your credit cards are on auto pay, the algorithm thinks, okay, we're pretty much guaranteed to get our payments made on time. And so they will grant you this reward of a few extra credit score points. It's silly little things that nobody knows about, but it's important. You don't have to do anything for it other than do that. Now, I have them all set on auto pay, but then obviously I still make extra payments. Right. But what if I'm traveling? What if you're distracted? What if who knows, maybe you're doing 15 events one month and you don't have to remember that stupid email that shows up and, oh, shoot, I have to make that payment. No, it just does it for you. And then when you realize and you remember you want to make an extra payment, you do it. But you do it on auto pay. they will reward you with extra credit score points. Okay.
And your
Super.
car as well, right?
Yeah, do it
Credit
all.
cards
Do it all.
and your
The credit
cars as
cards, the
well.
credit cards are the ones that make the most impact, but do them all. Sure. Now here's the one that most people mess up on. Well, most people mess up on all these because they don't know about them. But here's what messes people up. How many of you, when do you pay your credit cards? You get a statement, you have a due date, right? You pay them by the due date, right? So I have clients that I run their I hate using that word because you have to be very careful when you're talking to people. It's all sales, right? So it's like I always say, I'm going to review your credit profile because when you say pull or run, like that's a harsh term, right? So don't freaking pull anything from me. Don't run anything, right? But no, I'm going to review your credit profile and people understand that. But they're like, why is my score a 670? I pay my credit cards off in full every month. Now they also run businesses, so they run their credit cards up almost every month. It's utilization. And what you need to understand, like again, it's a game, right? You have to know the rules. Well, the credit card companies and the credit reporting agencies don't want you to win. You would think that they want you to have a good credit score so you can qualify for more financing. But the way that it's built, you can get financing even with a crappy credit score. But they want you to lose so that you have a crappy credit score so they can charge you more money. They'll approve you and you're desperate, but now you're paying 30% interest on a credit card. And that's the legal limit. They would charge you more. It's 29.99% is the legal limit that they can charge. Imagine if we could do that on every deal. We like our net worth would be like 100 times what it is right now. But that's what they can legally charge you, 29.99%. And so they will allow you credit up to a very low credit score, but they want you to have crappy credit so they can charge you more money. So what they do is they have a statement date when it comes out, and then they have a due date. Every good, responsible person out there pays their credit cards by the due date. Even if you do it on auto pay already, you're paying it by the due date. Here's how the game is rigged against you. If you have a $10,000 credit card and you racked it up for your business and you're at $9,000, now you're at 90% utilization, is going to tank your credit score by a good number of points. And you think, I paid off my credit cards every month faithfully. Well, guess what? When you pay it by the due date, they already reported your highest balance for the month. So what I tell people is you want to make sure I'm a little anal, so I call my credit card companies and I ask all of them, when do you report? Usually they're reporting right around the statement date. So you want to make sure that you pay your credit cards on the statement date, not the due date. And if you pay your credit cards off, by the time they report, now you're reporting your low balance. Let's just say that my client that said, like, why the hell is my credit score so sucky? I pay my credit cards off every month. Well, if he had just paid them off right before they reported, it would report a zero balance and zero utilization. His credit score would report high. So I went a little step further. Rather than paying them on the statement date, I actually changed the due dates on my credit cards to the statement date, and I set them on auto pay. So now when they pay, they're always reporting the lowest balance. Now, it doesn't matter if you can't, for whatever reason, pay off your credit card, right? But every time you're paying, so that means every time you make a payment, it's lowering the balance, it's lowering the utilization. So even if you're only paying 20% or 50% or whatever it is that you can pay that month, the point is that by the time when you pay it by the statement date, you're always going to be reporting the lowest possible balance that month, which is going to, in some cases, you might get 60, 80, 100 credit score points versus than reporting on a 90% utilization, even though you have the money to pay it off, right? Because a lot of us we run our businesses like that. We run it up, and especially doing flips, man. I have so many clients that they run their flips on their credit cards and they have crappy credit, but if we can teach them how to use it and how to do it, they can still have better credit so we can give them better terms on the loans. Another thing I left out was the phone numbers. Okay, like basically all your personal information, right? Address, name, phone numbers. They have to be consistent. The last thing that two kind of like little last things that I'll give you is your utilization matters. And just like the top tier credit scores used to be 740, then it went to 760, now it's 780 plus, your utilization brackets have also changed. It used to be that as long as you kept yourself below about a 30% utilization, you could still be good. And then it turned to 20, then it turned to 15. Now you really want to be below 10% utilization to garner the most credit score points. And actually, I just remembered another one. This is a bonus because many people have merchant cards, like say Home Depot, Victoria's Secret, B&B Hardware, Amazon, or whatever, right? So those are called merchant cards, even Discover card. Those cards, if you can avoid it, right, because you have certain number of slots, they call them, certain number of slots for your credit profiles that they will allow you, the FICO algorithm will allow you in order to garner the highest credit score that you can, which is of course it's an 850. And who cares about 850? Anything above 780 is the same. It doesn't matter, right? It's other than the fact that you just want to brag and be a dick. But some people are like just very boastful about that stuff. It's very, very, very difficult to do. But anything about 780, you're freaking doing amazing, right? You're doing better than most of the world. But the part of the thing, and this is total like ninja stuff. Okay, what people don't understand is that every single type of credit card or creditor that you get will garner you certain number of available points. What do I mean by that? A Visa credit card, which is a national bank card, will give you 100% of your available credit score points for whatever you qualify for. If you go and get a freaking Home Depot card or Lowe's card, that's a merchant card. That merchant card will only give you about, say, 70% of your total available potential credit score points for that slot. So if you can avoid it, don't take out merchant cards, because there's also only a certain number of slots, meaning open credit lines, that the FICO algorithm likes to see. So if you're going to have those slots filled by anything, make sure that it's filled by either a Visa or a MasterCard national bank card. Now, I'm not saying that don't get an American Express with the benefits. I'm not saying, hey, if you have a Discover card, like whatever, because then we start talking about seasoning, because all of us aren't spring chickens here. Okay, many of us are pushing 50, some of us are more than 50, some of us are in our 30s and 40s. So we're not total spring chickens. So you may have had a significant amount of credit seasoning. So if you have a Discover card that's 20 years old and you have a Visa card that's only 6 years old, that Discover card is probably going to get you more credit score points, because the seasoning matters also, right? Because they want to see a consistency in you making payments over a long period of time. That's why it's also very precarious to get new credit, because the more new credit you get, the lower it brings your overall seasoning, right? Let's say you have 30 years of credit history and you get a new card, it's compressing that seasoning. So that's why you always want to be careful in either getting new credit and especially in shutting down credit. That's one big mistake people do. It's like, man, I want to get out of debt. I want to get out of debt. They get out of debt. Thank God. Like, good for you. Finally, you made it. And then they're like, I'm going to go freaking Dave Ramsey style, and I'm just going to shut this credit card down. And then all of a sudden their credit score tanks 100 points. Why is that? Well, because the freaking credit card was open for 15 years. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. The last thing, apparently I can talk about this for a long time, but the last thing I'll give you is, if you have, let's say you have 4 or 5 or 6 different credit cards, you want to make sure that, obviously you're going to have your primaries, but you want to make sure that there's activity on each one of those cards every single month. How do you do that? Because you don't want to think about it, right? Like, we already have too many things to think about. Well, I have one credit card that I don't use very much, but I have my utility bills go on that card automatically. And it's a small amount, right? It's only a few $100 or whatever. But every single month, there's activity on the card. Because when you don't have activity on a card, the creditors start getting weird on you, and they might accidentally shut that card down on you. And then you're screwed. Because what if you had that card for 20 years or 15 years or 10 years? Now it's going to tank your score a little bit. And if you don't use it, it's also not going to give you the most juice for your credit score algorithm. So make sure that you have, like, all the cards that you have at least something, one thing that you use it for. So there's activity. Have your main ones, and make sure that every single card that you have pays you rewards. That's where the juice really comes from. Almost every Amazon purchase I make, it's either discounted or free, right? Because I have points. When I travel, a lot of times I get discounted stuff because the credit cards are paying me, right? And because I pay my credit cards on time, and usually I pay them off, I'm not paying the interest rate that to use that credit. And because I've had many of them for a long time, and even though the interest rates have gone up, I still have credit cards in the sixes and sevens and 8%. And of course, I have ones in the 20s too, right? Like all of us do. But if you pay them off, then you're not paying anything. And if you continue to use them, you get the rewards and the bonuses and all that kind of stuff. So if you don't have a card that pays you rewards, that pays you to use it, that's the other thing that I would recommend, because your lifestyle, your travel, like all these different things, now you're getting the creditors to pay you for using their credit. And if you apply those little things, man, that are all for free, that you don't have to do anything other than spend like a little bit of time setting these things up and being conscious about what that is, I promise you, you will get a better credit score. You will have less cost for the money that you borrow, and you'll just improve your life as an investor. So,
Man, love it, Ivan. I mean, think about it. Just going from 770, right, and above, 780 above
780 and above.
is the same as 850. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, going from paying 8% interest to 7%, just even on an interest 30-year, literally would save you about $100,000 just in interest alone.
And you'll really make me smile, because it means that I can get you better terms on the loans that I'm going to give you when you come to me for your fix and flip and ground up and rental properties and land loans and mortgages and all that kind of stuff. I can get you better terms, which is what I love to do.
And that's the thing, a lot of lenders don't do ground up build, like new builds, and Ivan does that as well. We got Damon on who here builds storage units,
Mhm.
so there's so many applications for
I'm
it. So
building 3 in India right now, and I lend nationwide. So, like, because I don't like to say no, but there is a process, and we have to make sure that we structure it properly on the front end so that the lenders themselves, the underwriters, will say yes.
let's take 5-10 minutes max, and let's open it up for questions. I'll start with the first question. So I was thinking about applying for another credit card, and I have, I don't know, maybe like 8 to 10 credit cards. What was that number where you have so many slots, they don't want to see too many of them? What was kind of, is it
Well,
10, 12? How many credit cards?
the
And
question I would ask you is, why are you considering taking out another card?
a lot of times there's 0% interest for 18 months just to
Mhm.
use it, leverage, balance transfers, paying higher rates, things of that. And then also to get a higher lines of credit, because then if you got a 300 line of credit versus 100K, you use it, it doesn't affect you as much if you only have a smaller amount.
Sure.
And so that's the thought, is more of a leverage game, 0% for 15, 18% compared to an 18% interest rate.
Yeah. So in this community, the type of person is different than the typical person. So the typical person, I would recommend not having more than 4 credit cards.
Okay.
But in the investor world, the entrepreneurial world, there's always that cost of opportunity. And part of what you're saying is that, look, if I get another credit card that gives me an extra $10,000 in credit, that means that my overall utilization ratio, right? My overall utilization ratio gets compressed, right? Because now I have an extra 10,000. What if I only have 6,000 or $3,000 in total credit on my cards, and I have a total of $100,000 in available credit? Well, the overall utilization is less. So that can help over time. What kind of can hurt you if you don't have an optimized credit profile, which is what I talked about in the beginning, is that now you have a lower seasoning, right? So even though it gives you a larger overall available credit balance, it shrinks your seasoning because now you have a day one credit card.
Mm.
But if you're going to use that 0% card for an opportunity to make 15, 20% on your money at 0%, I would say 100% go for it.
Cool.
Right.
Okay. Good to know.
But most of the normal people don't think like that. They don't have those opportunities. They just take it out for no reason. And like, if you're going to use that money over the course of the next 18 months to make money on it, it's totally worth it. Even if you take a few hits on your credit score. Now, if your credit score is lower already, if you're in the 600s and you're going to try to get a credit card, then I would probably caution you and say, hey, let's build that up a little bit. Let's look into why it's where it's at before we take more credit out, because it will hurt your credit. And you may or may not qualify for that 0% card, all those kinds of things. So if once we focus on credit optimization, if there's still anybody in your network that needs repair before they do that, now you can take all these steps first, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if you have something that needs repair and there is a delinquency, there is a this or that, or the other thing, I have a great guy that I've worked with for a lot of years, and I love him because he gets results. He's an a la carte kind of guy. He's not a subscription guy. I hate subscription guys. In fact, where I learned a lot of my stuff from as I was growing into this, because I understood like I need to freaking figure this out as an investor and a lender, is the guy who actually co-started Lexington Law Firm. And many of you may have heard of it because they are the largest credit repair company in the nation. But he grew tired of the same thing. Like, why am I gonna pay you if I pay you 120 bucks a month to fix my credit? How incentivized are you to fix it quickly? You're just gonna milk me for 120 bucks a month for as long as you can because it's gonna take a long time to make any money, right? So I don't like that model. The good models are the guys who work on a performance-based model, which means here's what I see you need. Here's how long I think it's going to take. Here's how much it's going to cost. And maybe it might be $800 or $1,200.
Yeah.
But he'll get it done in 3 or 4 months rather than 3 years of people just paying these automatic, like, oh, we're going to send letters out, we're going to do this. So that's what my guy does. And in the mortgage industry and the private money industry, that speed matters. So I got to get my people ready to be qualified as quickly as possible. So I have a guy for that if anybody needs that. But first is optimization and making sure that if you are taking credit out now for those purposes, so you can leverage that 0% money to go make money on it, you still have a decent credit score so you can qualify for the best card for that.
Love it. Any questions? Any questions here? This has been, Ivan, seriously, it fascinates me. Numbers and just little things like that. I don't know why.
Well, and it's the thing, like my business is not credit, right? I'm not
Yeah.
like, if you want me to fix your credit, I'm not that guy, right? It's just that because I do private money and mortgages and all that kind of stuff, like, and because I'm an investor myself and I understand that game, I have to know it. And I love teaching it because my borrowers have to know this. You as investors need to know it. Your potential borrowers and clients and different people like should know this and should have an access to it because it's a game that like America is rigged on this game.
Mhm.
So we got to know how to play it.
Yeah, we're on the system. Will you put your info, your contact in the chat right there so everyone has it?
Sure.
And if you guys will take maybe one or two questions, but think about it, guys. Ivan's not just the guy that does a loan for a first-time home buyer. Ivan works with investors, he works with builders, he works with everyone. And so keep in mind when you guys are working, hiring people, you want people that are diverse, that aren't just a one-trick pony. You want people that genuinely are there to educate you, not just try to be transactional and just to get your business. And there's a lot of people that are out there. And so, like, the thing I love about Ivan is he's like educating me. So I'm like, okay, Ivan, like, we're going through this process on this unit. I have a property in the back and I'm going through the Polk records, and that's through Ivan. He's teaching me kind of what to do. And now I'm going to add a second unit going through the city. So now it's going to be a conforming duplex, where before it didn't even count as square footage. So I'm going to add 450. It's going to add about $50,000 to my net line and the rental and dealing with tenants. And it's awesome. Well, if they approve it, but
Right.
I
The
was
city
telling you
has to
about it the other
approve
night.
it. Like,
Yeah,
but why wouldn't they? I mean, they had permits and,
yeah.
I'm a
It was
little,
grandfathered. I had a unit, guys, that I bought 5 years ago, and it was grandfathered. If it's grandfathered in, it becomes a duplex, but it wasn't in the system. So I went back to the library and I searched it for 80 years and
Mm.
found that somebody was in it 80 years ago with that separate unit. And just by doing that, it's going to add basically a duplex versus a single family. And it's going to add so much value to my bottom line. So, all right, guys, let's take a question here. Any questions? Ray, do you got a question? Ray, hop on. Is that no?
Mm.
Damon, Bevan, Corey, any questions?
Right on, guys. That
I
means
think you
that means
kind
I
of
was
answered,
thorough.
you answered like 300 questions in
It
that.
was
It was
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, and like I'm not your just. I mean, there's not a single average person on this freaking call. Okay, I know many of you. I met Bevan in Salt Lake last week, and obviously I met Ray at your bus tour. Like, there's not an average person here. It's a little weird because I've been on every side of the desk. Right, I started trying to get out of an insurance career to get into real estate investing, to raising money. So I've done everything. I've raised it, I've loaned it, I've syndicated, I've done thousands of loans. Like, I've seen just about every kind of deal. And I say just about because every time I think I've seen everything, it's like some new weird thing comes up. It's like, where the heck did this come from? Because that's just the industry that we're in. So that's why we do lend in 47 states, and we want to be able to educate people through the experience that we have and the networks that we build. So
Will you sing Corey
appreciate you
happy
guys.
birthday to take it away? It's Corey's birthday. Will you sing him happy birthday?
Happy birthday
Day
to
to you. Happy
Come on,
birthday
everybody.
to you.
Is Corey even on
Happy
here?
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
dear
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 Corey.
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 Happy
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 birthday
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 to
to
you.
you.
Love
you.
you guys. Let's
All right,
go. We'll see
now
you guys
drop
on
it
the
and give me
next call.
25.
Have a good night,
Thank you.
guys.
25,
Appreciate
Corey,
it.
25.
Love you, Corey. All right.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Have a blessed evening. God bless you.